now.
Okay. Can you hear the cats in the background?
Yeah, it's fine.
All right. Hey, welcome to Hustle Sauce. My name is Michael Sharkey. All right, Ryan Hartman, what are you working on?
Okay, so we got the Hustle Sauce logo here. What I'm working on is this concept. We had this name hanging around, and I just kept waking me up at night. This thing needs to be used. Hustle Sauce just rolls. And you and I have been talking about doing a show together, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, when you slacked me at midnight and you're like, Hustle Sauce, one, I knew that you woke up in the middle of the night with that idea, but I was like, you know, for all the names, and this is just that process you do where you're trying to name your project, you know it when you come across the name that's like, yeah, that's it. So when I saw the Slack on Hustle Sauce, I'm like, yep, that's it.
Yeah, so the concept here is Michael and I are going to be showing some of the things we do from day to day to hustle, so to speak, on our computers. And it's going to be a little bit behind the screens where you're looking at the raw stuff that's happening to build businesses like a Hustle Sauce.
Yeah.
So right here, I have a little agenda for today. We've done our intro. Over to the right, I've got this really weird looking logo, Michael. And I thought it might be fun if we jumped into Google Draw and played around with this a little bit. You gave me some feedback on the logo. Maybe I'll let you just do that now. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you first sent it to me, the jar of whatever that is, sauce with Hustle Sauce on it, I was like, oh my God, home run. And then like 5 minutes later, you sent me this little dude with it. And then, you know, as you are apt to do, you know, skilled in what you're doing, you started using this program, this Google Draw, and I've never used Google Draw. And I was like, what? So like my first part of the feedback was get that dude out of there. But my second part was, how did you even get the dude in there?
Yeah, so I'm not really good with Photoshop, but I find myself in situations where I need a little bit of graphic design, even if it's just to mock something up for a real graphic designer, right? So what I've done here is I went over, I'll share how this happened. I went over to Google Images, so images.google.com. I looked for sauce, like so. And then I think I set the tools right here. I went color transparent because I wanted something that would just go on a background easily, and looked for some sauce. Now, a lot of times when I'm doing this, I'll make sure that I choose a Creative Commons usage rights right here. So you see the Creative Commons licenses. But I eventually found this jar that you see on the screen. There's a bunch here that are kind of free to use. We may actually change this and use one of these other ones if they're better. But once I got the image, where's she at? I took it and just basically copied it onto a free Google Draw. Now, Google Draw is part of the Google Drive, suite of tools. And here's how I dropped it. You literally can just paste it onto the platform, onto the thing here, like that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that we need, if we're going to turn this thing into a podcast, we need an image for Libsyn, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as we're starting to build this content and build this show, there are certain assets that you need. I think a lot, like a lot of people are going to say, oh my God, you need a logo for this, you need a logo for that. And I think what we're showing is that you can build a logo and you can get, that beginning logo, even as you said a moment ago, for graphic designer purposes. But if you're going to start a podcast, one of the assets that you do need to set up your account is a 14 by 100 logo. Like you can't set up your Libsyn without it. So, Libsyn is a hosting platform, which we'll dive more into in a future episode. But like, that's just one of those things you need, as opposed to it just being one of those things that's like a nice to have.
Cool. So I went here and I made it 1400 by 1400. The way to do that is you go to page setup and you can do custom size pixels, and then it's set to 1400 by 1400, hit apply. So again, this is not very good. It's not perfect, but for the purposes of getting something launched, especially like this, Michael, where we don't know where this is going to go. This is one of our first episodes. Instead of spending $300, $500 on a really good logo, this is good enough, right?
Absolutely. And what we should probably do is dive into the concept of an MVP. I find that I talk to people who are like, I'll mention MVP and they're like, what's an MVP? So maybe in a future episode or the next episode, we talk about, minimally viable product. And really what that's about is what's the minimum bare necessities that you need to launch whatever your business, in this case, your YouTube channel and your podcast. And like I said a moment ago, you need a logo because you can't build your Libsyn without it. So it's like checking those things and building the to-do list on what's the bare minimum you need. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Just get it done and move on. Yep. You can always make it better later.
Yep. So we've got the logo. The next item, and we'll just go into this really quickly today, and then we'll be back in the next episode, that we needed was a domain name. And one of the reasons I kind of stopped for a minute with Hustle Sauce for a few days there was I went and looked for hustlesauce.com and it was taken. I actually went as far as to call the domain broker, and they wanted just too much money for it for something that at this point is just an idea. Right. Something like $5,000. But not to be deterred, gave it more thought, talked to you, and said, well, there's lots of other options. We know the main domain isn't being used, right? So let's just go with a .net, a .info, one of the other dots. So Michael,
let me ask you this question, Ryan, from your perspective, because you've built, like any entrepreneur, like you've probably got 30 or 40 domains just sitting as ideas, but like if you can't get a .com, what's your first go-to? Would you go .net? Would you go .info? Because now you can anything. I think you even showed me there's hustlesauce.recipes. Right? Yeah. So do you have a go-to? Is it just .net?
It's usually what's relevant for the name, but yeah, I usually go actually .net or .info. I just personally kind of like .info. I have a .io, the Thanks.io I'm a founder of, and that's one that a lot of people in the tech space are going toward. And you might find it's easier to find a .io.
Do you know what .io actually is?
I think it means input output. A lot of tech companies are using it now.
No, the backstory of .io is it's actually the domain for the region of the Indian Ocean. Oh. But so many tech companies loved it that it became this thing for like, I probably have worked with a dozen tech companies that are again, you've got Thanks.io, but it's actually the regional domain for the Indian Ocean. That's where it comes from.
Okay.
So anyway.
That's great. Yeah, my brain's been saying input output for years, so I must have read a bad fake news somewhere. So. All right. So what do you think, man? Hustlesauce.net, hustlesauce.info, hustlesauce.io?
I would probably stay away from .io because I feel like that becomes that you immediately think tech and we're really content. We obviously will talk about tech at some point, but I think .net works. And I think the other thing to remember when it comes to this very specific decision is, I always go .com if it's available. 9 times out of 10, it won't be, is that whenever you're building your content, people are going to find you on a YouTube channel. People are going to find you on a podcast. People are going to find you on a backlink. It's actually one of the smaller ways in which people will find you is this domain. So if somebody might find you at hustlesauce.net / marketing or something like that. So this is one of those decisions that I see people get hung up on. And I say, pick one, get it right, move it. I think for what we're doing, I'd probably do hustlesauce.info over hustlesauce.net. But again, I don't know that it's people, if we have good content, that's what people are here for. They're not going to turn away because it's .net over .info or vice versa.
The one thing one reason I agree with you that I'm obsessing a little bit over this, and the reason that I think I'm liking .info is that I want to be able to use the actual domain from media content, from YouTube, from the podcasts, in order to refer people back to the show notes or back to the actual things we're showing on the screen. Since what we're attempting to do here is to have something that's shown on podcast and on YouTube.
Yes.
So if we have a hustlesauce.info, I can now say to everybody listening right now, hey, go grab the show notes at hustlesauce.info /episode1.
Right.
So if they're listening, it's very easy to type in and go to. But yeah, like you said, I don't think we need a website per se.
Right. This is just a backlink to a specific page.
Yeah. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a forward. We'll show this in a future episode. I'll set up hustlesauce.info /episode1, and it'll just forward to this Google Doc that I show on the screen. And then the Google Doc will have all the relevant links that we've mentioned as show notes.
Yep. That's a great hack.
Yep. So a little hack there. I think we've done a good amount today. I'll get this bought up, and then maybe in the next episode, Michael, we can get going with Libsyn.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. Anything else to add for episode 1 here?
No, I mean, you're going to hear me say it a lot in these episodes, but like really in these beginning, you're watching us build Hustle Sauce. Love the name. You're watching us build it. And, just take note of the fact that, we made in these 15 minutes a decision about a domain name. We made a decision about our beginning logo. Like these are decisions that some people get caught up and will think about for months. And the idea is not to think about it. It's to act. Don't let perfection get in the way of progress, and get stuff done and get it launched quickly.
Yeah. Very well said. All right, everybody. See you soon. Hustlesauce.info for all of the related show notes and channels and everything else.